If you want to write a book and become a best-selling author, you're in the right place. At Elite Online Publishing, we can help you create, publish, and market your book so that it becomes a #1 bestseller. We work with a limited number of authors to ensure that they receive the best possible service. So if you want to learn how to write and publish a book that will empower you to smartly grow your brand, business, and credibility, apply today. We look forward to working with you.
Hey everyone, welcome to another Elite Publishing podcast. I'm Melanie Johnson, co-owner of Elite Online Publishing. We're so happy to have you here today. We're talking books, publishing as always. I'm here with my co-founder of Elite Online Publishing, Jen Foster. Hey, Jen.
Hey everyone, how's it going today?
All right. Well, you know what? We have a great author with us today that we're going to learn a lot from. His book is called Strategists First: How to Defeat the Strategy Trap. His name is Ryan Hayes. Ryan, welcome to the house. Welcome.
Thanks so much, Melanie and Jen. Looking forward to the conversation.
Awesome. Well, we just had fun learning a little bit more about you and your book on our Elite Expert Insider podcast. But today we want to dive into more of, when did you first start, like you knew you wanted to write a book? You're like, oh, I think I need to put this on paper.
So sure, I got my start. So I work in higher education, and I went through my graduate program, and did a PhD, and so I had to write a dissertation, and that process was very fulfilling to me. I've always enjoyed writing. It's a struggle, to be honest. Like words don't come easy for me, but it's one of those things I enjoy the craft of it, especially because it's hard. And so going through graduate school, I would sort of moonlight working in the administration as a speechwriter. And so I sort of got my start in academic administration as a speechwriter, and then went on to write a lot of other types of, fundraising documents and technical work and everything else. And so, but when you work in higher education and in the academic world, it's often the case that we like to use a lot of words to say what we're trying to say. And so I would say the thing that's been important to me is that my writing has evolved. And I would say when I first started out, I probably wasn't very good at writing for a public audience. And I've had to really work on that over the years. And so this book, I had ghostwritten a lot of pieces for other folks in sort of the nature of my job. And in 2020, I was asked to co-lead the university's response to the pandemic, which was just kind of all-encompassing, right? No one really had done this before. And so myself and the chair of our emergency medicine department, we were asked by the university president to co-lead the university's efforts. And it was kind of all-consuming. And I said to myself, if I don't have an outlet, I'm going to drive myself and my family absolutely crazy just on pandemic stuff. So I made a sort of pledge to myself that I'd find a way to release a little bit of that stress and tension. And so I started writing on the weekends and then in the evenings. And what started as honestly kind of a coping mechanism to get through the uncertainty and the demands of the pandemic kind of snowballed into a critical mass of reflections. And, I didn't necessarily start, honestly, with a book in mind. I sort of thought, I'll write a number of short snippets, little kind of reflections, and they could eventually be articles or over time it started to amass into something bigger.
Wow, I like that your intention wasn't to have a book, but it turned into a book is really cool. How have things changed for you? I mean, obviously you're doing podcasts. What other opportunities and doors have opened to you because of your book?
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, I have a full-time job as Chief Innovation and Strategy Officer at the university. So I try to, kind of layer in, speaking engagements and podcasts on balance with those work demands. But the best part, honestly, has just been connecting with folks who kind of always thought of themselves as a strategist, but never really kind of had the vocabulary or the visibility to actually articulate their experience. And so getting to meet them and hear about their journey has honestly been the most fulfilling part of this work. And so I'm always open to those conversations. Honestly, those small group conversations end up, for me, being really fulfilling. And, it just kind of keeps me motivated to want to learn more about their experience and eventually, try to incorporate it into future writings. But yeah, I would say that, I probably wasn't quite ready to handle, kind of all the demands that come with publishing a book, doing it in conjunction with your full-time job. But like anything, you just sort of adapt and adopt some best practices and move forward.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about your experience getting endorsements, because I know a lot of people have a hard time. They're not know exactly how to do it. Now tell us a little bit about, I know you have quite a few amazing quotes on the back of your book. Tell us who those people are and how you approach them to get the endorsement.
So great question, Jen. So again, being sort of new to the process, I had some folks sort of in mind. And what I noticed is that, really busy people are really hard to get their attention, right? And in these days, some folks were more reluctant than they had been in the past. They frankly told me that. They said that they used to do testimonials and quotes on books, but they had since, were more reluctant to do that. I think a lot of it has to do with just not necessarily knowing, how a book will play out in terms of, any sort of political dimension to it or anything like that. And so I definitely ran into a lot of people that were reticent to even go down that path. But I got a few folks, a couple founders that were really excited about this work and were willing to put a quote forward. At the end of the day, I decided to just go with one quote, and that was from the legendary venture capitalist Jim Getz. And Jim is a graduate of the institution I work at, the University of Cincinnati, and has just been an amazing supporter of the university. And frankly, the reason I was so interested in getting Jim to support the book with a testimonial is I honestly consider him, the best strategist I've ever known in terms of, his ability to really focus in on. If you think about it, his life involves taking bets on really risky business opportunities that most people don't even want to touch because it's so hard to succeed, right? I mean, most venture capital firms, they make 10 investments, 8 of those flat out fail. One usually succeeds and one's a little bit of a wash. So the one that succeeds has to outsize returns for all the other misses, right? And so to be in that world and to be really good, especially at his elite level, there's no one better. You have to be a master strategist. You have to be able to see around corners and understand things before other people can kind of see him in full sight. And so having Jim to be able to provide a quote for the book was honestly, it was a dream come true.
And I love that you went for the top. You weren't afraid. Like, let me just ask the best person. They support the university. You could have been like, well, I know they support the university, but it's just me. So you had no fear. You just went right for the top. So I admire that so much.
Jim, I was inspired actually by a quote that I had read from Jim, which is, if you're in the world of innovation and you're worried about being embarrassed, you're in the wrong world, right? Because being innovative is about taking risks, taking gambles, being open to failure. And so honestly, it was his words that gave me the backbone to even approach him.
Yeah, that open to failure, I think, is huge. Like you were saying in the beginning, getting endorsements, you had a lot of no's. A lot of people were reluctant, or they said, I don't do it anymore. I think we forget about, we're just have all these high expectations. We forget that we're going to get no's, we're going to get people that reject, and we just got to keep pushing forward because you're going to get a yes from someone that, and maybe it's the top guy, right? So.
Yeah. So it was just timing wise and the nature of his support. Ask for anything better.
Well, walk us through how you found a publisher. Did you decide like, okay, because you published with Post Hill, which is more of a traditional publisher. So like, did you think about self-publishing? Did you get advice from people? How did you end up there?
Yeah, so I got some advice from some folks early on, and they mentioned that the self-publishing route, if you really want to be successful, you needed to sort of build a business around it, kind of an entrepreneur model. And I was worried that I've got a day job and a day job that frankly is pretty demanding in terms of just the time commitment. And so I was worried about going down a path in which I would have to try to build a business around the book, right? I just didn't think that was doable. So I wanted a more traditional route, and certainly, being in academia, there are plenty of academic presses that are, always looking for great ideas. But I also didn't think it was a great fit for me because it wasn't going to be an academic book. It wasn't going to be a theoretical book. I really wanted to write something that, kind of anyone could just pick up and get value from. And so that kind of steered me away from, academic presses. I had a couple of conversations with academic presses that helped clarify to me that wasn't the right strategy choice for me. And then, once I got an agent, she was really looking for a good fit, and Post Hill just, sort of came forward, and they really liked sort of my approach to the book. I purposely didn't want to do a hardback. I wanted to go straight to a paperback. I just kind of had some maybe strong or too strong of opinions about the way I wanted the book to sort of be laid out in terms of, I wanted it to read kind of the way I wrote it, which was, kind of lean chapters that you could read in between meetings or on a commute. I didn't want it to be, really long-winded chapters that you sort of put the book down and then you pick it back up and you forget, where you are. I
Mhm.
wanted it to be sort of, mini books within sort of each chapters. And then I also wanted the ability to provide these sort of vignettes that were more kind of deep dives for people who,
Mhm.
again, they want to go deeper as a strategist. They could do that right in the book. So I wanted to create something that was kind of multimodal in terms of its usefulness. So folks could kind of read the parts that really made sense to them and then not go as deep in other parts. So it was never meant to be, at least in my mind, read from front to back in one setting, right? It was always meant to be as, this book could kind of be on the side of your desk. And, if there's a chapter in there on decision hygiene, decision making. So if you had an important decision coming up, you could just grab it, read 5 pages and be ready to tackle the day. And same thing, with some of the other, again, the way the book is structured. I've got this sort of formula for the book. It's 5 habits, 4 skills, 3 questions, 2 fixes, 1 mission, and 0 doubt. So it's sort of built on this sort of the spine of this quote unquote sort of formula or framework. This was meant again as a structural piece for just people having a better chance to understand kind of how the book is laid out. But yeah, the whole goal was to make it sort of reader focused. I talk about it not being a say book, so say books in my mind are the author has something to say and they want to say it and get it off their chest. Mine was just the opposite. I forced myself to call it a need book, which is what does the reader need to hear,
Mm.
and how do I do that? How do I do that for them
Yeah.
smarter, faster, and better? And because I'm trained as a psychoanalyst in terms of my academic training. I had a PhD in psychoanalytic studies, and so I'm always a little bit, reticent when I read a book and I feel like I'm sort of carrying the author's baggage, right? Like that they're trying to sort of, and this happens a lot, actually. I mentioned this in the preface of the book. This happens a lot in leadership books, especially as leaders will bring sort of their past to the page. And it becomes this sort of revisionist history, right? Where they tell their story and their vision becomes more visionary and their strategies become more strategic. And to me, it's just like, I wanted to write a book in which, I sort of took that off the table. So you'll notice, again, it says it in the preface, there's no reference to I, me, or we in the book. I don't include any single personal story in the book. I certainly have personal stories about strategy, but I didn't include any of them. And because I was a little bit afraid, again, about this self-narrated storytelling that, again, comes back to being all about the writer and not about the reader. So it's not to say that I'm anti-story. This book has tons of stories in it. They're just not my stories.
Gotcha. Yeah, because I always say stories are important, but so I'm glad there's still stories in there.
Yeah,
Well, tell us where people can go to find you, get more information, and get your book.
sure. Thanks, Jen. So it's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Walmart, Target. My website is ryanhayes.com. I've got some testimonials there as well as some clips of the book. You'll get a flavor for how the book is sort of laid out. But yeah, I do a lot of posts on LinkedIn around strategy and innovation, leadership, and change management. So please reach out to me there. I'd love to connect.
Sounds great. We'll put that up in the show notes.
Thanks for joining us today. And if you're looking to become a best-selling author, reach out to us at Elite Online Publishing and fill out the author submission form or give us a call. And we hope you learned a lot today, and check out all our YouTube channel. We have tons of YouTube videos that explain a lot about publishing and the differences between traditional and non-traditional and marketing tips. So keep writing, everybody. See you next time.
Bye.
Thank you.
If you want to write a book and become a best-selling author, you're in the right place. At Elite Online Publishing, we can help you create, publish, and market your book so that it becomes a #1 bestseller. We work with a limited number of authors to ensure that they receive the best possible service. So if you want to learn how to write and publish a book that will empower you to smartly grow your brand, business, and credibility, apply today. We look forward to working with you.